Well, here it is, the dead of winter. You know what that means for us here in USDA Zone 9. It's pepper seed starting time. Yay! It's spring! It's spring! We can start pepper seeds.
I wouldn't say it's spring, but yes, we can start pepper seeds.
Thank you for that. Debbie Flower is here, our favorite retired college horticultural professor. And why is it necessary to start pepper seeds in like January or February?
They're slow to germinate.
Yeah, they're slow to germinate and slow to get up to a transplantable size.
Right. Yes.
Like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here in California, basically, it's if you want tomato seeds, start them the end of February. They'll be ready by the end of April. And I know in this day and age of climate change, you're saying, no, I'm planting mine the first week of March.
Then you got to start sooner.
Yeah, exactly. So
about 9 weeks, I would say, for a tomato.
Yeah. And anything more than that, and it's going to get root bound and it's going to be jungly wherever you're growing them, or terribly skinny. And you don't want that either.
Skinny unless you work that stem. Make it move.
Well, we're here to talk peppers, not tomatoes.
Right.
We'll talk tomatoes at a future time, probably a month from now. But let's talk peppers. I brought out my, as you can see here, if you're looking at your phone, my pepper collection from last year, pepper seed collection. And obviously, you know, every year you don't start the whole packet. There's always some left over. So these are from last year. They should be good this year.
Yeah, seeds in general, if they're kept dry and cool, should last 2 years.
All right.
Minimum.
Yeah. And I'm figuring if you want any of these, I've got these empty packets we can put them in.
Oh, all right. That would be cool.
If you want them. If you start peppers. So my favorites from last year that I grew were some heirloom pepper seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. And they included Blot, B-L-O-T, Jimmy Nardello, which is one of my favorite Italian style peppers.
Sounds like he's got some friends, you know.
Yeah, Jimmy. The Ozark Giant, Zulu, and the one that lasted the longest, that we harvested the last one like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Wow.
The Nadapeño. Now, with a name like Nadapeño, you're thinking, well, it looks like a jalapeno.
Yeah.
Nada.
Okay, that's the source of the name.
Yes, it's this jalapeno-like pepper that has no heat to it.
Cool.
And they're very small. They're maybe 2 inches long. But like I say, they lasted a long time, perfect for salads or stir fry.
And that picture shows a young boy holding green peppers. Did any of them? No pepper is green forever.
The Nadapeños did turn purple in November, so there is that. But as I'm saying, this is the time of the year to start the pepper seeds. Some of my other favorites that have done well for me either last year or the year before that, Big Red, which is a sweet pepper. All these, by the way, are sweet peppers. I've given up my hot pepper ways.
Have you?
My body objects.
Yeah, I understand that part.
The Tequila is one of my favorite sweet peppers. It's a beautiful, shiny purple with just the best aroma of any sweet pepper I've ever cut into. The Tequila. It's an All-America Selections winner,
My
too.
mouth is watering.
The Gypsy. I plant this every year. I probably planted Gypsy sweet peppers for 20 years, 30 years, because it has outstanding yield year after year after year. It starts off with sort of a pale yellow, then it gets orange red, and then very red, and it's very sweet when ripe, but you can harvest it when it's that pale yellow color. So it's one of the earliest to start using from the garden, the Gypsy. The Giant Marconi, one of my other favorites too, that I plant year after year, that it gets fairly large, but like the name would imply, about 8 inches long or so. And then, of course, I got to try new seeds every year. Something new. So what's it going to be this year, Fred? Well, from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, I'm ordering something called Super Shepherd sweet pepper.
Okay.
Don't know anything about it.
Yep.
Got to try it, though. All right. And I'll also be planting an old favorite of mine. It's a sweet red pepper, the Corno di Toro, which is translated the horn of the bull.
Yeah, I was thinking bulls.
Yeah, it's the horn of the bull. It looks like a bull's horn.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you've sold those peppers really well.
Thank you. And I don't have to buy any. Well, I did buy a few, but most of these are from last year.
Do you find that the peppers need a little more shading? Maybe just the fruit needs shading than a tomato plant?
Here in California, I've noticed, especially here in the hot Central Valley, that the west side of the peppers are developing sunburn.
Yes, I've noticed that as well.
And I'm now looking at areas that get some protection from that late afternoon sun.
Yeah.
But obviously, pepper plants do best in full sun. And the definition of full sun is
6 to 8 hours of unobstructed rays from the sun.
All right, 6 to 8 hours. All right. I think I have that in my yard now.
Yeah, your neighbors removed some trees.
Yeah, breaks my heart. Yeah.
I have friends who plant their peppers close together, maybe closer than is recommended when on the packet. And this is when they go in the field, not when they're starting the seeds, so that they shade each other to protect the fruit from that sunburn.
Yeah, a lot of people make the mistake, especially on tomato plants, of cutting away foliage, and that can lead to sunburn of the tomato fruit.
In our climate. Now, when I learned how to grow tomatoes in New Jersey when I was in college, way back when, they had us prune them to a single stem and tie them to a stake because they said we got earlier fruit set, and I have no proof of that, but that's what I was told. But they needed to be exposed to the sun to ripen.
So here are some instructions for starting pepper seeds, which is why you came here today. Because they take a long time to germinate, you got to kind of give them a little boost, a little tickle, a little something. And one of those little somethings is some bottom heat.
Yeah, very important.
And that could be a propagation mat.
Yes, or I've also used, before I owned an official propagation mat, the heater for a waterbed. The mat, because it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, that would work too. Now, at one wholesale nursery I know in the area, when they're germinating seeds, they have tabletops where they're running hot water through pipes that are just below the surface of the table.
Right.
And that just provides enough ambient heat to warm the soil that, I guess, coaxes the seed out of dormancy.
Right. And if you're growing in a greenhouse, the greenhouse does not need to be heated if you've got the bottom heat under the plant, under the soil.
I did not know that.
Yes, there are greenhouses that operate that way.
Oh, okay.
That's enough. You're just trying to keep the plant warm, and it's really just the soil mass.
But after it germinates, then you have to turn on the greenhouse heat, I would think.
When it gets to a certain size, yes.
What is that size?
Well, tall enough that it's going to be out of that realm of heat that is being produced underneath it. So it depends on your source of heat. With the water, you probably get more heat than with a heating pad.
Beyond the cotyledon stage.
Yeah, probably after 4 true leaves.
Yeah. Cotyledons are not the true leaves. It's the first 2 leaves that appear on any dicot, I guess.
Right.
A dicot being a plant with 2 leaves.
2 leaves, right. Yes. A monocot would only have 1 cotyledon.
Yeah. Name an example of a monocot.
Grass is a monocot. Bamboo is a monocot. Yucca is a monocot.
Corn.
Bulbs, corn, yes.
Okay, but most of your fruiting vegetables
are dicots,
dicots, yeah. So anyway, so you wait for 4 true leaves to develop, and then if you do have a greenhouse situation, maybe keep the nighttime temperature at 50?
At least, yeah, that would be a good baseline. 45 to 86 is the range in which all plants will grow. 50 would give you a measure of protection in case something went wrong.
What sort of starting soil do you use?
Seed starting mix is a very fine non-soil mix. So soilless mix that's some kind of organic component. Peat moss is used. Sterile compost can be used. Coir can be used. They make peat pellets that you can use.
Have you had much luck with those? The peat pellets?
1 year, that's all I used, and I did have good luck with it.
Okay.
But I don't love their cost. They're not cheap.
Right.
And the cheaper ones have a net around them, which is nylon. And then you go back to the garden and you find all these little nylon nets all over the place. But they're easy. They're fun to watch, like if you're gardening with kids. And I have had seeds germinate in them. But I prefer to mix my own, which would be some very fine organic material, as we discussed, and then something to open it up. A typical mix would include some perlite. Perlite comes in different sizes. You want to get horticultural grade perlite. And it's very lightweight, so the seedling can push it out of the way. And then sometimes use vermiculite, which is the mica, the rock mica, broken into small pieces and heated so it expands, and that helps to hold moisture in the media. It also, I often put it on top of the seeds to make sure that moisture is trapped on the top surface of the soil. When you put out a heating mat, you can be surprised at how quickly, we often start seeds in very small containers.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of media. And then when you put that small container on a heating mat, they dry out surprisingly fast. And this vermiculite on the surface holds a little extra moisture. Again, it's just sort of reassures me that it's going to stay moist even if I forget about it for a little bit too long.
So on top of the soil mix that you created, the seed starting mix, could you just place the seeds and then just top it with that eighth of an inch or so of vermiculite?
Absolutely. Okay. The smaller the seed, the more chance it needs to be exposed to light in order to germinate. And vermiculite's very shiny, and you can even cover the seed completely with that eighth inch of vermiculite, and the seed will get enough light that it will germinate. Now, if the seed requires darkness, and I'm not aware of any vegetable seeds that require darkness, there's probably some, but if they require darkness, you would need to bury that seed in order to give it that darkness to germinate.
So I can stop poking my finger into the moist soil mix and dropping a seed in there.
Right. You do want the seed to snuggle up to the media, kind of like in a fireplace. If you have two logs and they're at either side of the fireplace, you're not going to have a very good fire. You'll have a better fire when those logs snuggle up to each other, okay? We'll have a better germination when that seed snuggles up to that media because it will allow the seed to moisten faster.
We're learning a lot today, how to build a fire. Okay. The soil mix, then, you can buy the seed starting mix?
Yes, you can.
Already mixed. That's easy. But there are all sorts of formulas online for seed starting mixes, and most of them contain basically what you talked about.
Right.
The three ingredients like a peat or coir, one third of that, 1/3 of perlite, and I use 1/3 of a very fine compost as well. But you can use
you can use compost. You can use peat, perlite, vermiculite. Sometimes depends on what you're starting. With most vegetables, moisture is good for starting, and so doing peat, perlite, and compost would be a good choice.
All right. I'm waiting for the annual Debbie Flower rant about planting in moist soil.
The soil, and not everyone agrees with me on this, but the soil should be moist before it's put into the container. If you're starting seeds, number one, the containers need to be extremely clean. No traces of media whatsoever in those containers. If you are concerned, you don't think you got it clean enough, you could run it through a 10% bleach solution. But bleach is quickly disabled by organic matter. Any diseases that you might worry about, and in starting seeds, it's called a disease called damping off is your primary problem, will be carried over from the previous crop in that soil. So you want to make sure that the containers are brand new or they're older ones that have been completely cleaned. Then you mix your media, or you get it from a bag and put it in. I use kitty litter containers. Use a bucket, use a wheelbarrow, but the container itself needs to be clean. Again, you don't want to transmit disease from a previous crop. Put the media in there and moisten it, just like a wrung out sponge, not dripping. If you get it too wet, don't worry too much. Your container must have drain holes so that excess water will eventually drain out. Then put it in the pot and fill the pot to the very top, even over the top, and then you bang it on the bench about 3 times, and that settles the media. It settles it enough, but not so much that you've pushed all the pore holes out of that media. So the roots will still get oxygen. Then you plant your seed, and you always water after planting, and that helps do that snuggling of the seed against the media.
If the container you're using is a peat pot, and a lot of people use peat pots, do you need to soak that peat pot first?
Yes, they typically come with directions that they do need to be soaked, and often they go inside of a rigid plastic or ceramic pot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They don't have to, especially if they have the netting. They don't have to.
Okay, but most of your 3-inch or 4-inch peat pots look like they're fairly sturdy. Well, they are. They're dry, but as soon as they get wet,
they start to fall apart.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And that's the problem.
That's why they are peat pots.
Right.
They're supposed to fall apart.
We experimented with like cow pots made from cow manure, and there were some other pots that we experimented with in production when I was teaching, and they didn't hold up long enough. For vegetable seedling production at home, they probably work fine. But in a greenhouse situation where we're trying to move them around and take them out of the greenhouse for a sale, they just didn't stand up. They started to collapse. So they offer lots of different things for seed starting, even a way to make seed pots out of newspaper, which would work, but that newspaper is going to break down fairly quickly.
Very quickly, yes. You mentioned damping off.
Right.
Let's talk about that. It's a very common disease for people who plant from seed, and you get your hopes up, and overnight your hopes are dashed.
Right. It's literally overnight. And I believe it's a fungal disease, and it travels with water, and it loves the conditions for seed starting, which is warm and moist. One day you have your plants. Some people start lots of plants in one container, maybe in a flat, and the plants will look great, and you'll leave and you'll come back the next day, and a portion of them are laying down right at the soil level.
Yeah.
And it's because the disease has eaten that very fine stem all the way around it. It only likes very fine stems, so it only likes the seedling before it gets true leaves. Once the seedling has gotten true leaves, the stem is too thick for the disease to eat through it. But they lay over, and they're dead. You can't do anything about it.
I guess technically a disease might dissolve and not eat, or how does that work? When I think of eating, I think of insects chomping around it.
Yeah, well, okay. Whatever method, it consumes
All right.
the very young stem.
Is damping off Pythium, or am I just making up a word there?
No, I don't think it is.
Okay.
I would have to check.
I don't know. I guess I could check too.
Yeah, it's a fungus. Rhizoctonia and fusarium.
There we go.
Along with water mold Pythium.
Oh, I like that. Whoa.
No, you were right. So it's a group of fungi.
It's a fungal club. All right. I like to use plastic pots over and over again. 3-inch plastic pots, 3 inches wide, maybe 4 inches tall. Mm-hmm. And I clean them thoroughly. Thank you. Because I always fear that, well, what if this open package of seeds that I've had for a year went bad? Well, I'll stick 3 seeds into each container, hoping one comes up. Of course, all 3 germinate.
Very common.
But by the time they put out their first true sets of leaves, I will be transplanting each one into its own 3-inch pot.
Uh-huh.
And that means there's usually a big tray of pepper plants I'm offering for free out on the front porch every April or so.
Yes, the seedlings quickly take over space, so be prepared for that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of having a greenhouse.
Yes.
So, but this is a good scenic bypass to go on, because what if you don't have a greenhouse?
You can start them indoors. There are some aids to germination that you will want for any seedling. One is you want to be near a window. It does help to have light. Plants are amazing. Even house plants know when it's winter and when it's not. So it does help to have some stimulation from outdoor light, but you will need stronger light than that. So to get a good, strong seedling, you need, it used to be fluorescent lights hanging within inches, literally 2-3 inches above the plant. Now there are LED lights that can be used for the same thing. At home, those are your options. And the reason you don't want to use sodium halide or halogen or something like that is they are too hot. They give off too much heat and they would burn the plant. You have to have very strong light, so you have to have the light near the plant, and the amount of heat coming from those other types of lights that might be used in a commercial production situation would not work indoors in your home.
There are some interesting light structures out there that you could be using to get your seedlings to grow. And we should point out that you only need to turn those lights on when the plant has actually emerged from the ground.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it wants more light. And most of these lighting systems are usually long, narrow tubes. And you wonder, well, how the heck can that provide enough light? Mm-hmm. I guess one of the keys is, well, it's only 2 inches from the top of the plant.
Right.
But they're usually on flexible hoses, if you will, and you can bend it down. And they come in different colors, too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Lights come in what we call the warm tones, which would be the reds, yellows, orange, and the cool tones, which are the blues. And those 2 different parts of the spectrum have different jobs in the plant. And so you want 2 bulbs, and you want 1 cool and 1 warm. I was looking at a seed catalog the other night, and they had structures for starting. It was just a 2-foot-long fluorescent, it could have been LED, fixture that holds 2 bulbs, 1 warm, 1 cool. It's on a metal stand, and you can raise and lower it. And that's important, to be able to raise and lower it. So the ones Fred was describing were on a gooseneck that can move around, and the one I saw in the seed catalog was on this side structure, and it could be moved up and down. Because the plants are going to grow, and you want to keep the bulbs within a couple of inches of the tops of the plants for best growth. That's one thing you definitely need, is additional light.
You can find some interesting little mini indoor greenhouses available at some of the big box stores and the better nurseries that look like a little pup tent that have trays in them, a stand, and a light fixture. Mm-hmm. And it has like a white cover to it, a white sheet-like cover to it. And I guess for that is maintaining the heat inside.
Okay. I haven't seen those.
Oh, shop around.
Okay. Yeah, I don't get out much. I have trouble understanding the need for the plastic part, the green, the structure part. Mm-hmm. I assume it's to increase moisture, but there are problems with getting the moisture too high. Then you can start having fungal diseases, and your plants can rot. The other thing that I would recommend that you have for seed starting is wind, a fan. So because you want the stem of the plant to be strong, and in order for the stem to be strong, it has to move. It has to develop what's called reaction wood. It's called that whether the plant is woody or not. And you want it to sway back and forth. The experiment was done on plants on a bench by some graduate students, and they had to go into the greenhouse and shake the bench for 10 minutes a day. That's all it needed. That 10 minutes strengthened the stem. I use an oscillating fan, meaning one that goes back and forth, and I have it on a minimum of a half an hour so that all the plants that it goes back and forth past will get their own 10 minutes of shaking, and that will strengthen the stem of the plant.
Half hour once a day?
Half hour once a day, yeah.
All right. Also, and you can find these at just about any nursery or big box store, are usually seed starting kits that consist of a catch basin, if you will, an insert that might have up to 72 cells in it, and a plastic lid.
The domes.
The domes
are wonderful.
Yeah.
I use domes. I have a greenhouse, but I use domes. The domes have openings on either side and the top so that you can control airflow. Seedlings do need airflow. You don't want them to get so wet that they just rot in place. Seeds will rot in place if they get too wet. You do want some airflow to get them to germinate. And then once they are above ground, you take the dome off and start using the wind.
There are also, and this is important because one question you have to ask yourself, where is the water going to go?
Yeah.
It has to go somewhere. It can't be sitting in the soil. And usually plant trays are ribbed so that the cells are sitting maybe a half inch or so above the bottom. That just means you have to be vigilant, though, about emptying out the bottom of that tray.
Right. It's like watering a houseplant. You don't want it to sit in a tray of water.
Right. And there are some kits you can buy that have everything you need all in one fell swoop. You've got the dome, you've got the cells, you've got the tray, and you've got the heated mat below. That's a great way to get started.
It is.
How long can they stay in those little cells, though?
Well, I'm trying to think. From germination, it might be a week or two. Depends on what you're growing. Depends on how big it is. If it's a bean seed, you got to get it out of there really fast. Yeah. You'll start seeing roots coming out the bottom of the cells, and that's definitely a time to take them out.
Because they're small.
Yes, they're small, and when you have to increase your frequency in watering, you've got a lot of roots in there. So those are the two clues.
Okay, you're right. And that's the other thing, too, is they may not need water every day, but you should check it every day.
Absolutely.
And some cells may be more prone to drying out than others.
Yes, sometimes the edges dry out first, especially if the dome is older, and I do use them for more than 1 year, and it doesn't quite fit right, or part of it, I try to always put too many pots on the heat pad, and so some of them are getting more heat than others, and so they're drying out sooner. So they're getting sun if they're in the greenhouse. Some parts of the container are getting more sun than others. There are a variety of things that will cause different sections to dry out first. So yes, check them and periodically pick up, the insert and check for roots coming out the bottom.
And if you use that plastic dome, make sure that it has vents on top that you can open.
Right, and make sure you do open some of them.
Yeah, exactly. The question that people who listen to Garden Basics might ask, why can't I just go to the nursery and buy the plants? Well, you could if you wanted to, but don't you like something a little different?
Right.
Maybe if you want something that's heirloom or has a different texture or look or color, much more available in seed than they are as plants. If you go to a good nursery and check all the varieties of sweet pepper plants, for example, they might have 10, maybe 15, when there is in reality, if you look at a seed catalog, pages and pages and pages.
Yes.
Of possibilities for you to plant. I mean, that's the next level for gardening is
explore.
Thank you. Yes.
And once it's fun, it's rewarding. If you've got kids, they often get a kick out of look at that. It just came up, especially if they put the seed in the soil. So it can be really a cool thing to watch happen. And once you've invested in the set, the one, they're under $50, the whole set with the heating pad and the tray and the cells and the dome, then it can be cheaper because you get a lot more seeds for what you would pay for a single plant at the nursery. And you can reuse if some of your plants didn't come up or you choose not to grow them. You can take the plant out and reuse some of the media for other uses, not for seed starting, but for other uses.
The nursery industry. They love for you to come in and buy those 6-packs or those 4-packs or those singles in the 4-inch pots of annuals and vegetables because they're making twice what they paid for it.
Yeah, it's a profit.
Yeah.
It's a business. It deserves to make a profit, but you're right. It does. They do make money on it.
It's a high profit item for the nursery. Now, the problem is, of course, if you're growing them from seed, you're going to have more than you know what to do with.
Right. So you can make some really good friends.
Yes, exactly. Do a plant swap.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You buy the peppers and someone else buys the tomatoes. Now, one thing we didn't discuss was goosing that little seed. Peppers, like we said, take a long time to germinate. Yeah. And it can be frustrating. I taught students how to do this stuff, and you want them to be successful. You want them to see the baby plant as soon as possible. One thing that we did, I read it somewhere and we tried it, and it did help, is soak the seeds in hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide's chemical makeup is H2O2. So it's additional oxygen to water. So it's got more oxygen. And that, for some reason, seems to help the seed germinate. In order for a seed to germinate, it has to absorb moisture. There's a full-sized baby plant in there and a source of food for that baby plant inside the seed. And so that absorbed moisture activates chemicals which cause the cells to start to expand. The first thing that will come out of a seed is a root. And then after that, the cotyledons, which are the source of food, and the full baby plant will expand. But for peppers, it just takes a long time. But soaking them in hydrogen peroxide helps. So then you say, well, how long? If you check the references, they vary from seconds to a half hour. When I was teaching, we did it for 10 minutes. I can remember the students walking around with their little plastic cup of pepper seeds, watching the clock and talking to each other, which was fine. It varies. I've also seen it recommended for chili pepper seeds, which are pepper seeds. Same thing, the amount of time varies depending on what reference you look at. But it's worth a try. You could do an experiment. Plant some seeds without soaking, some seeds with soaking. Make sure you put that on the label, and then see who comes up first.
And what is the difference in the studies that you've done on this of germination time between an unsoaked pepper seed and a soaked pepper seed?
Boy, I don't have that in my head immediately, but I want to say 1 week for a soaked pepper seed.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, that is quick.
Yeah, because pepper seeds are notoriously slow.
Yeah.
Don't give up after 2 weeks. It could take a third week.
Yeah, and these were in a greenhouse with a dome on bottom heat. And tended daily. They were well looked after seedlings.
And not fertilized. We should point out that at this point in their life, they don't need extra fertilization.
Correct. They don't. They have those cotyledons, and that's specifically to feed the baby plant. Once they're up out of the ground, it's a different story. But just to get them to germinate, they've got all the food they need. The other thing, though, to consider is don't plant them too deeply. They are living off of that cotyledon food from the time they get wet until they emerge and get sunlight. If they run out of that cotyledon food before they make it up to the surface and out into the sun, they're dead. So if you plant the seedling too deep, it will die before it makes it to the surface. It'll germinate, but it'll die before it makes it to the surface. So we were talking about using vermiculite on the surface and not putting the seed in very deeply. That may be a choice that is beneficial for getting those peppers up.
And again, the process was place the seeds on top of that moistened soil mix in the container, bang the container once on the tabletop, and then sprinkle on like 1/8 of an inch or so of vermiculite.
And then water very gently. Watering is a skill that I found I had to train the students to do because the tendency is to put the then planted tray of seedlings or pot of seedlings right under the faucet and water it, and out of the pot goes the seed because it is right there on the surface. So you need to use a very gentle flow. I taught them to use, we used Dram brand nozzles. They make some with many, many, many holes in them, 300 holes, 500 holes. And I had the student turn on the water, stand back feet away from the table where the flat of seedlings were, or planted seeds was, and turn it upside down so the water went up in the air and then it came down. It's frustrating because it doesn't wet the media as fast as they may have liked. And the other is they make fogging nozzles to water seedlings with. They're even more frustrating because they produce very little water. But you put the media in wet, you put the seed on the wet media, you put the vermiculite over the top. You're just trying to get everything settled with a little bit of water. You do not want the water to be very hard on the surface and wash the seed right out of the container.
Dram refers to that utensil as their water breaker nozzle.
Water breaker nozzle. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing on the end.
Yeah. Shower head nozzle, water breaker nozzle. Gentle. If you just have your typical multi-headed hose end sprayer with various settings, I would do it on mist.
Yes. There you go. Very good.
And that would work.
Yes.
The whole idea is not to dislodge the seed.
Right.
All right.
Just be aware of that when you water.
Anything else?
The only other thing I could think of is people will say, how long do I leave the lights on when the plant is up out of the ground? It's anywhere from 8 to 12 hours.
Is that all?
A day.
Would you do it during the day or at night?
During the day. Plants need night.
Oh, they do need.
Yes, they do other
time.
things at night. They during the day they're doing photosynthesis and they're respiring, which is the opposite of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is making food. Respiring is taking that food, breaking it down to make new cells or fix damage or whatever the plant needs. If they never get nighttime, they can't do that and they'll burn themselves out.
All right. This, like you were mentioning, this is the perfect sort of homeschooling type of thing to do with the kids to show them how seeds germinate.
All right.
But it's if you want a wide variety of different, cool-looking, great-tasting vegetables this year, we're starting off the season with peppers. Go ahead, buy some seeds.
And get started.
Debbie Flower, thanks so much for getting us going on 2022 Vegetable Garden.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks, Fred.
We're talking to our favorite retired college horticultural professor, Debbie Flower. And Debbie, this question comes in, and I bet this question is on the minds of a lot of gardeners, both new gardeners and old gardeners, who, and in this case, Cheryl writes in and says, I still have half a packet of tomato seeds left from last year. Are they still good? Well, I guess we can go with our standard answer. It depends.
Right. It depends. What we need to know, seeds can last several years. Typically, I maybe will keep them for 2 years, but the critical thing is how they were stored in that time that you're saving them. They need to be kept dry and cool. And the smaller the seed, the shorter life it has, the less chance that it's going to survive for this year. And so if she wants to check it to see if it's going to germinate, the easiest thing to do is take 5 or 10 seeds. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze.
Okay.
Come on. Now, of course, it's not going to come.
Well, it will in mid-sentence.
Right. If she wants to check her seeds to find out if they're going to germinate, the easiest thing to do is to take a paper towel or a coffee filter, but I use a paper towel, fold it in half, and then open it up again and I like to do 10 seeds because then the math is easy. Typically there are lots of seeds in a seed packet. So 10 is you're not going to run out of seeds by using 10, but you could do 5. The math is just a little harder. Put them right in that fold, separate them by a couple of inches, then fold the paper towel back over them, and then roll it up in the other direction like a cigar so that the seeds are all in the fold and they are all at the one end of the cigar. And then dampen the whole thing. And then I like to stand it up in a jar or a coffee cup, glass, something like that, and put a plastic bag over the top so it stays moist. And I look at the package. How many days until germination? Tomatoes, probably 7 to 14. And so I would check it in a week by taking off the plastic bag, taking out the paper towel, unrolling the cigar, opening the fold, and see how many have germinated. That will give you an idea of how many will germinate in the ground. If half of them have germinated, then I might want to double seed, put 2 seeds wherever I would start 1, and then hopefully I'll get 1 to germinate. If none have germinated after 7 days, I'd fold the thing back up again, roll it up like a cigar again, put it in the jar again, cover it with the plastic again, leave it another week and check it again. If none germinate, then probably the seeds aren't very good. I wouldn't trust them and I would buy new.
Inquiring minds want to know, why stand it up? Why can't you just lay it flat, that wet paper towel?
Because it's easier to see which seeds have roots. If you lay it flat, roots grow towards gravity. And so if you lay it flat, the roots will just grow wide all over the other seeds. And it's difficult to tell from which seed the root has arisen. If you stand it up in the cup, then the roots grow down. And when you open it up, you'll be able to see which ones have germinated and which ones have not.
There's some downsides to doing this test in January for tomato seeds. I'll explain that in a second. But let's say you're doing this test in February or March. Could you take those seeds that have germinated and then put them in some sort of seed starting mix?
Yes, you could. And that's why I mentioned a coffee filter instead of a paper towel. The downside of a paper towel is that it has fibers and the roots can become entwined in the fibers. And so if I did this experiment with a paper towel, I would cut the paper towel around the seed and plant the whole thing, paper towel and all, because the root hairs tend to get into the paper towel. If you do it on a coffee filter, they're less likely to do that. But coffee filters don't give you as much space as a paper towel does to do this test.
And why use a seed starting mix instead of just backyard soil?
Seeds are small. If we're growing in a container, backyard soil holds too much water to be in a container. It's very tight in its texture, and water stays in the soil on the surfaces of all the particles. And if the particles are very close together, which is what I mean by tight, then the water fills all the pores between the soil particles, and there's no place for oxygen. And roots do need oxygen to grow. So a seed starting mix is more open. It actually has bigger particle sizes, or there's lots of different field soil. And some of the reason field soil can be tight is because the particle sizes are of all different sizes. And so the little ones fit in between the big ones. The seed starting mix that you purchase is of all one size. And so they're all big. And so think of a jar full of golf balls and how there would be spaces between them. But if you added pennies to the golf ball jar, all the spaces would be filled with pennies. So the golf ball and the pennies is the field soil. The golf ball alone is the seed starting mix. Seeds are small, and the little plants that come out of them, seeds contain a completely formed little plant. The little plants that come out of them aren't very strong, and so the particle sizes need to be very lightweight so that the little plant that comes out of the seed can push the particles out of the way. Field soil tends to be heavier, can have rocks in it. Other kinds of potting material that you would buy in a bag to grow things in containers can have particle sizes that are too large, and baby plants can't push their way out. And if they can't push their way out, they can't get bigger. So we use seed starting mix for those reasons.
Ah, yes, that mysterious big wall of soil that you'll find at a garden center or big box store, potting mix, planting mix, outdoor mix, container mix. And somewhere there, you'll find usually small bags of seed starting mix.
Right.
And I guess that's fine if you're only starting a few, but if you're starting a lot, you may want to economize by perhaps making your own seed starting mix.
That's true. That's very true. And so for that, I typically use peat moss, perlite, and vermiculite in a 1-to-1-to-1 mix, meaning if I have one, I'll use a clean, empty container, maybe a 4-inch, maybe a gallon, depends how much material I'm trying to make. And so one part means one container full of peat moss, another part means one container full of perlite, and another part means one container full of vermiculite. Then you need to add a little bit of lime to that because peat moss is very acidic. If you don't want to use peat moss, you could use sand. That would be for very well-drained things. Native California drought-tolerant plants, cactus, things that like drought. You could use coir, and apparently it comes in pellets. I have not used the pellets, but the pellets, they need to be soaked, but they work better than the big blocks that are all compressed because the big blocks have to be soaked before you use them. But coir is coconut fiber. You could use compost. Any sort of organic material that is clean and seed-free can be used instead of peat moss.
And if you do use coir, the benefit to that is it has more of a neutral pH, unlike peat moss, which is very acidic. So you wouldn't need the lime in that case.
Yes. And the math to calculate how much lime you need is not easy.
Okay. Yeah. So all of a sudden, that bag of seed starting mix looks better and better.
It sure does. Yeah.
Yes. But it's amazing what you can do on a big scale, though, if you just got, in my case, I would use peat moss, I would use compost, and I would use perlite. Now, I know you're not a big fan of perlite, but you have a substitute for the perlite.
I would use the perlite in seed starting because it is lightweight. And I'm not a fan of it because of the amount of dust it creates. It creates dust whenever you're using it. So when you open the bag, there's a puff of dust in your face. And then when you dig into the bag to get some out, there's dust. And when you pour it, there's dust. And when you mix it with the other stuff, there's dust. So the number one thing to do when you're working with perlite is wet it. Open the bag with a scissors rather than pulling it apart somehow because the scissors are calmer in cutting the bag. You create less dust that way. Take the hose and put it right in the bag and wet the perlite. Then, of course, we all have masks these days. Wearing a mask is a good idea. When I'm potting on up, once the seed has germinated and I have a small plant with a root system, then I will switch to pumice. Pumice is created by volcanoes. And it comes in different sizes. You can get small sizes that are, I haven't found one that's as small as regular horticultural perlite. I haven't had trouble with it creating problems because it's a little bit bigger. So I will use that as the component in a container mix.
One of the problems with perlite as well is as it goes on in the growing process of that new plant, it tends to float up to the surface.
Well, it doesn't float to the surface, but everything else washes away.
Okay. That's
technicality.
Everything else goes down.
Everything else goes down, yeah.
All right. And I mean, is that just cosmetic, though?
Yes, that is cosmetic.
And if you don't want to use perlite, you could use pumice.
You could replace perlite with sand in seed starting. It needs to be horticultural sand, which is also builder sand, which is washed and sized. Because sand typically comes from places where salt water has been. I know you can drive around the U.S. and find gravel pits and sand pits, mining pits all over the place, but they're in places where salt water used to be, and so the sand is full of salt. And so that salt needs to be washed out. Salt will kill a plant very, very quickly. It's got sodium in it, and too much sodium will quickly kill a plant. So the sand you would use in place of perlite and seed starting mix needs to be washed and sized, and builder sand is sufficient for that you can get at your big box store.
You don't want to start tomato seeds in January because they're going to be ready to transplant in probably 8 weeks. And if you do that in January and think you're going to transplant in March, you just might be in for a rude surprise if the weather turns cold. So if you want to back time your tomato seed planting, subtract 8 weeks. So if you normally plant in late April, you would want to plant those tomato seeds in late February. So I guess this little test your seed experiment would work with just about any vegetable seed, wouldn't it?
Yes, I used to do it with my students, a whole classroom. I kept old seeds, some of them decades old, a bean in particular, an anasazi bean that germinated every year, almost 100% for decades. So some seeds can be kept a long time and some seeds can't. But yeah, every semester I did that test with students. It was, to me, a very wonderful way of testing your seeds.
What is the best way to store seeds? I know you said in a cool, dry place. Is the refrigerator an option?
Yes, the refrigerator is an option, and that's where I keep my seeds. Most of them, not all of them, but just because I'm lazy, not because I have any selection of ones that shouldn't go in the refrigerator. Refrigerators are typically around 42 degrees, and that's okay for all seeds.
And how would you store them? Could you store them in their original container that you purchased the seeds in?
I always want to do that because there's so much great information on that seed packet, and I won't remember what they are if I take them out. And I collect those little dehydration packets that come in new things. I'm sure you've bought a new purse recently, right, Fred? And in the bottom of the purse is a packet. It says, "Do not eat." And it's typically white with some writing on it, and you rub it around in your hands and you can feel that there are round things inside. And that's for absorbing moisture. And I collect those and I'll put those in with my seeds to keep them dry. And you can put them in a Ziploc bag, or a jar is even better.
And then put them down in the vegetable or the fruit crisper?
I don't put them there, but anywhere would work. The fruit crisper sometimes is controlled to be humid, and that's not what you want. You just want them to be cool and dry. So back in the jar in the back of a shelf, or I even sometimes have them in the door.
Is there any danger of losing the life out of those seeds if you store them in the refrigerator if there are apples in the same location?
Well, apples give off ethylene, and ethylene is a ripening hormone. I don't think it would affect the seed. I would have to honestly look into that. But I would want my seed in a jar or in a plastic bag, and that should be enough to keep the ethylene away.
So before you rush out to buy new seed, maybe gather up those packets that you've stored in a cool, dry location, test the seeds, and you just might have plenty for the upcoming growing season. Once again, we learn a lot with Debbie Flower. Debbie, thanks for a few minutes of your time.
Always a pleasure, Fred. Thank you.